Welcome back to the last conversation of today, which is Thursday, November 30th. Last day of November? Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm Jay. This is Krista. We are at Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. We're here with Mitch from Urban Grow. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Urban Grow, and then we'll dive deeper into it.
Yeah, I guess, quick elevator pitch is Urban Grow is an integrated design build firm specializing in controlled ag, but, with a particular focus on cannabis and a lot of expertise in that area.
And controlled ag. That's like hermetically, this is not a scientific term, but like hermetically sealed room to grow weed in.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, controlled ag overall is a little bit broad. I think it essentially encompasses everything as kind of baseline as a greenhouse all the way through fully indoor, controlled environment, HVAC equipment, that kind of thing. So, broad kind of umbrella. A lot of different crops kind of fall under it too, but a lot of cannabis projects in it.
What trends have you seen in the last 3 years?
That's a great question too. There have been a lot of different trends, and even the trends 3 years ago versus the last year have been pretty different. Overall, there's been a pretty big slowdown, I would say, in new construction in the market. So we're seeing a lot of the kind of existing operators consolidate. We're seeing a lot of kind of acquisitions over the last couple of years. And then with that, groups are trying to kind of standardize. So they have a couple of facilities in different states. Let's say they have one in Illinois, one in New Jersey, one in Florida, and those are all totally different environments. If they were acquired over a period of time, they were built by different people. And so we're seeing a lot of kind of retrofits to improve, kind of integrate new equipment, kind of technology that's been proven over the last 3 to 5 years, and then just standardization across multiple locations.
And what are the relative size of these? Because one of the trends, certainly the work that you do, but one of the trends we've seen certainly on the Canadian side is like massive greenhouse that gets built amazing and actually never gets used. And then like this shift almost of the entire market to like smaller grows, but also not a 1 million square foot greenhouse. Like it's somewhere like the right sizing or right fitting the operations to.
Yeah, and that's a conversation, especially as we're getting more involved in like architecture. We've acquired, for us over the last 3 years, we acquired architecture, engineering, full MEP in-house, construction. And so as we're getting more into the early design phase of projects, we're having those conversations a lot more with customers. And really, I think, there's no perfect grow, there's no perfect facility, but it comes down to your local market and then your desired kind of end product. Sometimes, like the greenhouses we're kind of trying to do, they're not trying to grow the highest quality product. They're just trying to grow bulk mid-grade, I like to call it. And greenhouse can be a good solution for that. Canada, I think part of the challenge is we're climate. You don't get a lot of light up there. The weather's not always great. Even in summer, it can be a little humid. So, these days we are seeing a lot more folks kind of go for that, I would say 30 to 50,000 square foot indoor facility. But a lot of that is just based on where we're seeing these facilities pop up. The regulations and restrictions around things like odor mitigation makes it a lot harder to do a greenhouse when you can't have smell for surrounding areas. But yeah, we're seeing a lot kind of more of a trend towards smaller, but still mid-sized commercial, and a lot more kind of heavily indoor, trying to chase that premium price point.
Yeah. And you said there's no perfect builder, no perfect. Although unless you talk to a grower and they're like, the perfect thing is what we do and the way we do it.
It's their facility.
Like is it interesting to like certainly working with founders, right? I would imagine all the time, like new businesses starting up, saying we need it to be like this because this is how we grew in the legacy market, and then saying, well, great, but also like this is how you actually both compliance wise, but like from a standard procedure of like how things get built.
No, and we definitely see a lot of those legacy mentalities come in. Part of it is that equipment over the last few years for these cultivation facilities, greenhouse and indoor, has gotten a lot better. And so, the best and, what would have been maybe closer to a perfect grow 5 years ago, it just looks very different than it does today based on, new options on HVAC, new kind of strategies that people are employing around, different equipment items, different SOPs in cultivation also. And a lot of that is really going to be driven by the state regulations. A lot of the early states we saw had plant count limitations that push people away from kind of legacy cultivation strategies. So it all depends where you're growing and again what your kind of end product goal is and who you're trying to target with it.
But the trend that I think you've identified is like more normal size grows that actually meet the market demand that is evolving, which says to me that the companies that are building these things are actually becoming better businesses.
Yeah.
Right? Like we saw people just building facilities because that's what drove stock price, honestly.
Yeah.
Whereas it wasn't made for like, this is how we're going to grow. This is the type of weed we're going to grow. This is like the premium price point's got to be grown like this. The mid grade is going to be like this. For stuff that's completely extracted, we're going to grow outside. Like it actually is sort of more right sizing as a trend, which I think speaks to like, well, conferences like this where people are actually talking about the future of the industry.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, I think there was a lot of hype about capital markets and raising a lot of money early on, and a lot of that was done, like you said, in Canada, based on, or the story that they were telling investors was just based on canopy square footage.
Right.
And greenhouse canopy is easier to set up, especially if you can buy a 30-acre commercial ag greenhouse and convert it.
Right.
And so now I think you're right. You know, a trend that we're seeing for the better is just folks thinking about growing product and making, you know, selling it for profit, which is something that hasn't, you know, it's as simple as it sounds. It's something that hasn't been.
Can you imagine that that's the business model? Right.
I had a Canadian CEO years ago tell me, he said, you know, up here it's like field of dreams, grow it and they will come. And, you know, and I think, yeah, we're definitely seeing a shift towards, you know, targeting the market, targeting your end customer. And also people, you know, now that markets are more mature, I think operators have some data to look at and say, hey, you know, I think this product is going to do really well in the market. You know, we're seeing a lot of folks, you know, in kind of the spirit of retrofitting and improving assets that you know, are either newly acquired or struggling. A lot of folks are changing extraction strategies. We're seeing a lot more hash in the market because you can look at mature markets like Colorado and even California to a degree and see that those products are still selling for a really large premium, and you know, you're able to be profitable with product that otherwise you'd be selling out the door for a loss as flower. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you know, it's I guess refreshing in a lot of ways to see folks thinking about the bottom line, thinking about costs now that money is a lot harder to raise for a lot of them.
No money out there.
Yeah, the money has to come from your products, right. And you know, it's a different ballgame when you're doing that.
Yeah. And what do you think, you know, we're 1.5 days into the show down the street. Like, what are the things you are either hoping to learn or take away from here to apply to sort of everyday operations?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like we're talking about, seeing what trends are different. You know, I think the MSOs, the multi-state operators in the U.S., they're still active, but in different areas than they were. They're not doing, you know, expansion for new cultivation quite as much. They're really kind of, again, trying to optimize what they already have and then trying to kind of, you know, focus on post-harvest a little bit more. And so you can even see that reflected a little bit in the show. There's just a lot more post-harvest equipment vendors. You know, the booths are bigger for the post-harvest groups. The hall that they're in is bigger than it has been in the past. And there are a lot more vendors in that space. It's, you know, which I think is for the better because everyone's been focusing on cultivation and really nailing that down. But at the end of the day, that's only half of it. Right. You can grow the best product in the garden, but if it doesn't get through the dry cure room and into the product packaging in a way that's kind of appealing to consumers, it doesn't matter how good it was, you know, coming out of the flower room. Right.
Yeah. The show floor, like, I'm bringing my brother's never been to a cannabis show here, and it's like, the world is like, it's like Willy Wonka. Well, yeah. We're looking at machines right now, right?
Yeah.
But then also, like, your point, like, if everybody's all focused on cultivation, not the end product, it's like, you're missing out half the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know. I mean, it's exciting to see. We do everything from, you know, early design of cultivation all the way through extraction labs, kitchens, that kind of thing. So it's good to see people having more focus on that, even in the early design phase. You know, we're starting to have more conversations with customers that they know what they want to do by the end, and that helps in the design phase of cultivation also, because you can gear your operation towards the products that you're going to be, you know, actually selling to the end customer.
So it's similar to every part of the sector where it's like people went in with a business model or an idea.
Yeah.
But like getting the facility to actually do that thing is one thing, but then having the facility do the thing you want to do next or the right thing to do is like, it's all retrofit, right? It's
totally. And also, you know, the markets were very different. You know, when you're selling wholesale for $2,000-$3,000 a pound, you don't need to do anything with the product. You can, you know, throw it in a 3-pound bag and sell it out the door. But when you have a lot of that product sitting, it's aging, it's losing value, you have to kind of start getting creative with how to either make it better so that you can sell it out the door at the same price wholesale, or process it in a way that's more appealing and you're able to get better margins.
Yeah. I appreciate your insight because I think it's really important, and I thank you for your patience as we were getting things going.
No,
So
of
thank
course,
you so
of
much,
course, I appreciate
Mitch, for
that.
being here, and for the team for building time in your schedule to make it happen. And thank you, Krista, for today.
Thank you, Jay.
And we'll give another
Thanks,
shout out to
Ted.
Planet 13, who was so gracious yesterday. They were making gummies, which was fun to watch, but then they were like canning beverages, which was also fun to watch right in our view. And thank you to the crew. Thank you to the producer, Matt. Thank you to Annie. And we'll be back tomorrow, also at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time from Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I'm Jay, you're Krista, and you're Mitch. We'll see you all tomorrow, 8:30 Pacific time.
Thanks.